So welcome everyone to the San Francisco Psychedelic Society Members Campfire. It's such an honor to have you back here in our sacred space. My name is Danielle Nagrin. I'm the executive director here at the San Francisco Psychedelic Society, and I'm joined here with Hannah, who is our pioneer of our membership community. And tonight we are really excited to bring to you this event. And we are hosting a talk with my dear friends that I have been so lucky to be sharing space with and building with and growing with in community. This is a portal to the sacred garden, we're calling this event. And tonight we are going to hear all about the new Portal Community Center here, that's just opened up in Berkeley, California. We have Clive Worsley and Isabel Santis and Bob Otis, who are the founding members of the Portal Community Center, that are going to be sharing all about this community center and the intentions of this center, how you can get involved. And then later on in the evening, we're going to hear about a little bit about what's happening in psychedelic policy and advocacy. So Bob, do you want to kick us off with an invocation and prayer?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. And the first thing I want to do is just express my own gratitude to you, Danielle, and also to folks who have been core to SFPS in the past, Damla and Seth, and now you, Hannah, and everyone else who's involved. SFPS has been such a great kind of center. It's just felt like a home. So it feels really nice to be sitting here in this group. Kind of feels like coming back to one of my homes. Yeah, so just sharing that love. And guys, as chief garden steward of Sacred Garden Community, one of the things that we often like to do is open a meeting almost as if it's a form of ceremony, just sort of recognize this time as special time. Depending on what sort of background you bring in, you could consider it a sacred time that we're sharing together. And so just to offer a little opening, and I really hope that the words that I share are not sectarian, that they can be sort of acceptable to everyone in the group. And in fact, even if they're not, that could be something really interesting. I'd love to get a side chat, if something were shared that wasn't really resonating, really trying to be able to share gratitude and intentions in a way that we can all recognize our commonness, our unity in this. So just want to express a lot of gratitude that we can even be here. What an awesome miracle this is. That we can breathe, that we can feel the breath moving in and out of our bodies, that we can feel the air on our skin. We can hear each other. We can see one another, even remotely. We can be together, that we can see colors, that we can hear sounds. It's just a miracle. And even greater miracle that we can be together with community, aligned towards growing insight and healing, aligned towards growing community even. So just really feeling that gratitude, and hope everyone can share that sense of gratitude with me. May the time we spend together, the time we're spending together tonight, bring us closer to who we truly are, bring us peace within, bring us insight, bring us happiness. And may we really feel that happiness and lightness of spirit that we can then carry on to our communities. Thank you. Amen. Yeah. Thanks for letting me do that, guys.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob. So I want to give a little intro to the Portal Community Center, which is a new community center in Berkeley, California. The community center's mission is to make space available free of charge to organizations that support and work in the plant medicine space. That work can include spiritual or religious and ceremonial approaches, along with science and research, policy and advocacy work, and clinical and therapeutic work. So I want to welcome Clive, who is joining us today for this discussion. And Clive has spent the last 30 years in the nonprofit leadership in the local performing arts and education spaces, engaging and empowering BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus youth from all over the Bay Area. He is the director of operations in the newly opened Portal Community Center. And Isabel Santis, who is she's part of the Sacred Garden Community's Elders Council, and we'll hear a little bit more about the Sacred Garden Community today. And she's also part of the Portal Advisory Council. So welcome both Clive and Isabel.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And thank you folks in the community for making space for this conversation today. Very grateful to be here. Excuse me, my name is Clive Worsley. I use he, him pronouns. As Danielle said, I am the director of operations, or the operations steward of the newly opened Portal Community Center in Berkeley. I am also the sustainability steward for the Sacred Garden community, of which I am a grateful member. The Portal sits in the former Terrace Temple space at 3051 Adeline Street in Berkeley, California, directly across the street from the Ashby BART station. We officially took residence in May, but began holding events in about the middle of June. And things have begun to ramp up with more and more events as time moves on, considering the COVID-19 restrictions and guidelines that we're all respectfully living with for now. The Portal came to be out of conversations that Bob Stanley, the chief garden steward of Sacred Garden Community, had with friend David Bronner, which led to Bronner SOAP agreeing to sponsor the opening of a community center with the following mandate: that the space be made available to organizations and individuals, vetted organizations, I should say, and individuals working in the intersecting fields of plant medicine and psychedelics research and practice. We then formed an advisory council which governs over the center, dictates its policies, makes decisions on which organizations will be involved, and how we conduct ourselves within this space. That advisory council is made up of the following organizations and individuals that represent them. The Sacred Garden Community, as represented by Bob Otis. San Francisco Psychedelic Society, as represented by our dear Danielle. Psychedelic Seminars, as represented by Mike Margolis. Supernova Women, as represented by Amber Center. Inner City Bliss, represented by our good friend Andre Humphrey. Spiral Journey Integration, as represented by my dear friend Isabel Santis, who you'll hear from in a moment. Michael Rising, as represented by Seth Warner, our good friend. And Sage Institute and Sage Integrative Health, as represented by our dear friend Genesee Hertzberg. So essentially, the space is available to any of these organizations and organizations that they may vet or sponsor to hold events for the public along the lines of the kind of work that each of us do in some of the areas that Danielle outlined, free of charge. Organizations may charge their admission fee for their attendees, and thereby create profit centers for themselves. As each of our organizations are well aware, we still live under capitalism, and we do need money to be able to do the work that we want to continue to do. So this allows these organizations to raise some funds at the same time as raising awareness and doing the work that they do. Organizations can choose to contribute back to the health and wealth of the community center itself, but it is not a requirement of any kind. The only real requirements of the space, or rather limitations of the space, are a few rules, and that are there is no smoking inside the building. There is no consumption, selling, or purchasing of any illegal scheduled substances within the grounds of the building. We do not engage in active scheduled medicine practice in the space at this time. The moment that we are able to do so safely and legally, we will do so with great celebration, but that is not today. And that we ask that we, treat our neighbors and fellow tenants in the building with respect, care, and trust. There have been a lot of really great things happening at the center, and we're really only just getting started. I would love to ask Isabel, if you, as a member of the advisory council and one of the representing organizations, if you would speak to your aspirations for the space at this time, I would love to hear your POV.
Yeah, thank you so much, Clive, for that lovely introduction. What I would love to see the center become is really a hub for connection, community, education, interaction, and growth of the psychedelic community in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. I think that San Francisco, the Bay Area in general, and particularly Oakland right now, are at the forefront of making psychedelics available to people from a really ground up perspective. Really, it's not a top down, it's not a medicalized approach, and we're really talking about how we can serve communities in the most equitable and fair way, and to make psychedelics available to people that actually really need them. So my hope for the center is that we can provide opportunities for organizations to offer their services for reduced rates that make them available and accessible to people that otherwise would not be able to use them. And that we can create a community of practitioners, educators, and integration specialists that work together for the benefit of the community. So that is if I were to design the vision for the center, that is like my little golden nugget, what I hold in my heart for what I would like to envision. And I think that we are in a position with this great organizations that are coming together to make that a reality. So it is my deep hope and prayer that that is what happens.
Thanks, Isabel. As a sort of sample of some of the things that are happening at the center, last night there was a ganja yoga class held in the space that's been going on for a few weeks now. A small group, but really, really engaged, practice really beautiful stuff.
I'm just going to jump in on that one, because there was the no smoking indoors, but there's a lovely sort of smoking patio area for ganja, as someone who just recently got off of a cannabis fast, which I'm quite proud that I engaged, but who loves cannabis. There is a place for that at the center.
Yes, it's true, Bob, and thank you for lifting up the cannabis corridor out there in the back. This coming weekend, SFPS is holding a recovery in psychedelics workshop meeting in the space in person. Sunday, our friends at Kind Philanthropy and Beats Drop Cancer are holding a sound healing event. We have a live music event coming up second Friday of September. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to 4 are co-working hours. Folks are welcome to show up with their laptops, with their notebooks, with their desire for connection and conversation, and just sort of hang out in the space with us. The first and third Sundays of each month in the morning, Sacred Garden Community holds its in-person Sunday Sangha that is open to the public if folks are interested in coming to those. The second and fourth Fridays of each month, we host a social hour, which is actually 2 hours from 6:30 to 8:30, and that is open to anybody who wants to just come by, have a cup of tea with us, have a conversation with us, and continue to grow community with us. The only caveat that I will add to all of the above is that for now, the portal will follow the city of Berkeley and the county of Alameda's public health department guidelines around mask mandates indoors, regardless of our vaccination status. We will do that to protect ourselves, to protect all of you, and to protect those loved ones we have at home. Really great stuff. I just really so excited about what lies ahead for us as these intersecting communities. I really do believe that in the spirit of the mandate that we have been given in operating the space, that we can operate intersecting communities without competition and without fear, and that the potential cross-pollination of our various communities brings health and wealth to all of us. There are and have been some rifts within the psychedelic communities in the Bay Area and across the country. We would like the portal to be a place where those rifts can slowly and organically dissolve by making the physical space itself available to all for any appropriate purpose. We're very, very open to the space being used in an affinity shape, i.e. there could be BIPOC only evenings, there can be queer only evenings, there could be trans folk only evenings. And my pledge to you is that I will open the door, let you in, and get out of your way. Within the confines of good conduct, guided by the values of care, respect, and trust for ourselves and for each other. Please, Isabel.
Clive, could you tell folks first of all, how they would be able to host an event at the center? And secondly, where they might be able to find out a calendar of events so they can attend them?
Absolutely. The calendar of events is pretty easy. Right now, I'll put it in the chat. Right now, it is at sacredgarden.life/calendar. The portal's own website is coming, but is not quite there yet. And I thank you in advance for your patience in that regard. But you can visit sacredgarden.life/calendar. That's in the chat. You can always email me, Clive@sacredgarden.life, also putting that in the chat. And for members of San Francisco Psychedelic Society, your best bet for now in terms of hoping to book an event for yourself and or for an adjunct organization or association will be to go through SFPS and have them sponsor you as an independent organization or a group of individuals to host an event. That's going to be the most straightforward way for now. And then come to the center, see me, have a conversation with me, and let's make something happen. Thanks, Isabel. I appreciate that question. Dee, do you want me to take questions from folks now, or do you want to? Danielle?
Yeah, we would love to learn more about the center, and I'm curious. Thank you so much for being part of this first ever center that's come to the Bay Area and really the US, this psychedelic focused and integration center, this community focused center. It's really exciting that we have this opportunity. I'm curious what your long-term vision is. How would you like to see the center grow and birth into where would you like to see it go?
It's a great question. The space that we are in, the 2,500 square foot former terrace temple and former fifth string musical instrument store, where that one came from, is directly next door to what was the Marmot Mountain Works, which prior to that, the entire complex was a funeral home and mortuary. There was a huge cathedral building that sits immediately next door to us that seats between 500 and 600 people. We would love to see the portal grow to the point where we required a space that big. We want to see it as Isabel said, the bustling hub of psychedelia and sacred plant medicine and practice. We want to see it held as a sacred space that is open to all. We want to see it as a place where we celebrate decriminalization of our medicine. We want to see it become a place where we can practice with our medicine in community, robustly and with great joy. And the abandon that comes with the surety of safety. That's what we would like. There is no stopping this train that we're on. There is no stopping it. It might not be tomorrow and it might not be next week, but there will come a time, I firmly believe this, when all of us in this lifetime will dance together under the same roof in celebration. And that's what I would like the portal to do for us. That being said, I think it also really is important in the times that we are in to do what we can to make space for others. There, has been a great historical critique of the psychedelic movement and communities in the United States as being very white. And while that is true in large part, it is not exclusively true. And our BIPOC brothers and sisters and our queer brothers and sisters and others are growing their own communities as we are growing ours. And we want to make this portal a space, like we want to go out of our way to make the portal a space for them, where they feel as though it belongs to them. Sacred Garden community gets a check from the Bronner Soap Company. That's it. Bronner Soap has no involvement beyond that. They don't tell us what to do other than the original mandate to make the space available. Sacred Garden wants to get out of the way. We want, when you think portal, we want you to think you. The logo of portal is not going to be my face, right? I would like the logo of the portal to actually be a mirror so that it's yours, so that you, each of us and our intersecting communities all feel as though it is their home. That's my vision for the space, Danielle, with your help.
I love that, Clive. I just got such a beautiful image of a mirror. And for those in our community that aren't familiar with the Sacred Garden, can you both share a bit about what Sacred Garden Community is?
Sure. You know, Bob will be able to speak to this better than I, but I can say that Sacred Garden Community, we are a community of folks who accept the basic tenet that we believe in the possibility that respectful engagement with entheogens can bring us to an experience of the divine within this lifetime. And to that, we add that we agree to operate under 3 virtues, which are those of care, respect, and trust. Isabel, would you like to say a little bit more about Sacred Garden as a member of the Sacred Garden Elders Council?
Yeah, sure. I think Sacred Garden is primarily an organization that is devoted to helping and supporting people cultivate their own practice with entheogens in an intentional, careful, ethical, and caring way. And a big part of the mission of Sacred Garden is that of community integration. And that is one of the things that makes us different, you know, that a community integration is all about how do we bring all of these lessons, all of this knowledge that we acquire during our experiences, not only to apply them to our life and benefit ourselves and our dear others, but also how do we show up in the world and what kind of contributions we make and how can we benefit the community at large? In what way can we become integral to this necessary changes that we all know are needed in the world? So for that purpose, we have, you know, we create a number of different opportunities for engagement for the members to meet with each other, share time together, and grow their practice together. And it is, you know, we have members from all over the world, all the Americas at least right now. So it is really exciting to have this growing community and this greater sense of engagement and impact. And we welcome all of you, anyone who might want to come to Sangha on Sundays, either online or in person. We would love to see you. Thank you.
Bob, do you want to say a little bit more about Sacred Garden as the Chief Garden Steward?
Yeah, and there was a nice question from Noah that I think I could really probably speak to as well, about kind of what's the difference between Sacred Garden and the portal. Yeah, so I think that's a really important question. And do want to encourage folks to check out sacredgarden.life if you want to learn more about Sacred Garden Community. If you sign up as someone who's interested in becoming a member, then that opens up a little bit more of our internal conversation. We want to ask people to be kind of moving in a sincere way into community so that we can open up, you know, opportunities for guidance towards good practice within the church. About that question around the portal and the SGC. So Danielle had mentioned we've been kind of working together for years, and I want to mention that Danielle was actually one of the seed founders also within Sacred Garden Community, and has been just contributing to our communities and to communities of communities for I guess at least 5 years that I'm aware of. It seems like forever now because so much has happened. But Danielle and I and others in this group had been associated with the Decrim Nature activity, and I was one of the founding chairperson of Decrim Nature, and Danielle was a part of that. And there's been a lot of great progress with Decrim Nature, but there's also been a lot of kind of emotional challenges, some fractures within the group. And so David Bronner from Bronner Soap Company had seen that I was associated with Decrim Nature, and he was really interested in trying to find someone who could help heal some of these fractures. And they're fractures for good reasons, I think, honestly. There are people who are concerned about domination by the medical clinical model in the entheogen space, and that's caused a lot of kind of activation and energy and sort of demonizing kind of feelings. And there's also been people who are really concerned with the impact of capital, right, in the entheogen space. And, you know, I really think that those are very fair areas if we're going to be upset around something. So I'm also trying to come into those fractures from a place of understanding, right, towards sort of both perspectives. I'm kind of an all and sort of person myself. And so I feel like maybe there can be a space for clinical and medical as well as for traditional practice and even creative uses and things like that. And similarly, I'm hoping even through some work I'm doing within a benefit corporation, and I want to be open that I'm working within a benefit corporation in the space, that we may even start to understand how we can help heal a little bit of the horrible excesses and depredation of capitalism. So there are challenges, that's my point, in the entheogen space. And so David had seen some publications that I had that were talking about some of these things. And so he just called and said, hey, how can I help? Was really his framing. Bob, I see that you were the Decrim Nature chairperson, and there's been a lot of unhappiness from within that group and people upset. And, you know, is there any way I can kind of help grow communities together so that we can have alignment and not be throwing spirit darts across the valley one to the other, and that we can be coming from a loving place towards each other. And so I said, let me talk to other community leadership. And then Danielle, I think you and I had a call, and I talked with Seth and a lot of folks, Reggie from Oakland Hi-Fi and others, and Seasway from Spirit Works and a lot of groups. And so I'll spare the details, but there was there are already plenty of details, but there was a lot of energy towards, look, we don't need another company. We don't need another corporation. I don't want to be on another board of, you know, I can't take on more work, Bob, people saying. But if there was a place that we could all get together that was sort of committed to harmony and committed to at one-ment, you know, and committed to openness and really celebrating our diversity of political views, our diversity of some of the things Clive had mentioned, where we're coming from, economic diversity, diversity in terms of our culture, race, gender, you know, all those things, so that we can be celebrating and really coming from a place of like what the plants are sort of trying to help us understand around forgiveness. And I have this feeling that for me, the plant work teaches me both to really celebrate the infinite, beautiful diversity of each of us and all of our history, and to celebrate that and to mourn that, and to really be present with those things. And then also to recognize the deep unity that we experience. So David and I were having this kind of chat and talking with community members. And basically David said, well, would Sacred Garden be willing to host a center, right? So now we're finally to the point. So Sacred Garden community made a commitment, and it's part of our practice. Isabel mentioned we have community integration as part of our practice. That's part of the Sacred Garden community practice, recognizing benefits that we've received through our own practice in our own lives, and through the integration we can bring into our bodies. How can we also connect as communities across to other communities and connect in community? So to me, it felt like a really healthy community integration practice for me personally and for the church. And so that was a big step, and that also was a scary one to allow Sacred Garden to receive that funding to be the essentially the management of the center, right? But we had that opportunity and we wanted to take it. So I said, David, you know, I think we can do a good job with this. I think we can be friends with these other communities. I think we can do it. So we gave him a budget. Now, and finally, to the real point, there's Sacred Garden Community, which is a church. We call it a church of least dogma. Clive was just sharing some of that. It's really about practice and experience. That's different than the Portal Community Center. We're managing it. We have a guy that makes sure the doors are open. We're putting in the IT for the calendar. You know, we clean up at night. We make sure that the insurance is there so that people can have talks that are with insurance, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the center itself is governed separately. So Sacred Garden Community isn't governing the center. The center is governed by an advisory council, which is similar in many ways to a board of directors. The advisory council, now I'm going to be really blunt. This is where I allowed myself to take some authority, and I have a lot of challenge around authority and authoritarianism and making decisions. But I went ahead and invited 8 groups that I felt were doing good work and that I felt were harmony oriented, that had different policy perspectives and such, but that were committed to loving even across difference. So that's where I invited SFPS and I invited Inner City Bliss, and Isabel was really glad that we invited Spiral Journey. And so we invited these groups to create an advisory council, which is the group that makes decisions about the governance of the center, who talks there, what our programming is going to be, and stuff like that. And then also so I hope that's fairly clear. So there's an advisory council for the Portal Community Center. And then the advisory council now is also in a place where we're talking about inviting a larger community council. So we want to invite in additional community who also will have input on programming and stuff like that. So we're not completely some radical new teal decentralized group that's just like has no governance or something really confusing. We do have Sacred Garden Community kind of managing the legal responsibilities for the center, but we have a really, I think, hopefully very democratic and flat way that wants to be extremely inclusive in regards to what the heck we're doing at the center. I hope that was useful.
Bob, thank
Thanks,
you so
Bob.
much for all
That's
that
cool.
background. And I just wanted to say too, I haven't been to the portal specifically, but I'm really excited to visit the space on Adeline Street across from the Ashby BART. It sounds very inviting and welcoming. And I thought that we could maybe turn it to a couple of people in the group, you know, who has questions. I certainly have a few more questions, but I definitely want to hear from our members if they have questions for Isabel, Clive, and Bob. So does anyone have any questions or comments on what they've heard so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
Phil.
No.
Yeah, I would love to hear what the plans are for trying to empower like marginalized communities, people of color, people who traditionally haven't had access to these spaces. I'm sure you guys have thought about it. So yeah, would love to hear that and kind of what efforts are being done there to make sure that they feel not only that they can come, but that they have you know, more of a seat at the table.
Right on, and thank you, Phil. I really appreciate that conversation. It really is important to us. You know, my orientation towards it is that my privilege means that it's my work to do, right? But I can't do that work alone. So our good friend Andre Humphrey, who runs Inner City Bliss here in Oakland, is also a member of the advisory council, has committed to helping us do a lot of this kind of outreach into BIPOC communities where he is so deeply connected, both here in Oakland and across the Bay region. And we're, you know, actively looking for those groups that we can engage with, that we can open the doors to, make those overtures and invitations to. I would be more than happy if anybody in this group or your friends and colleagues know of groups that BIPOC and or LGBTQ plus groups that are operating in the psychedelic spaces, looking for a place to be able to hold an event to gather their community, please send them my way. We're most definitely all about open arms to those communities that don't look like me.
Clive and Bob and Isabel, I know you talked about plans to expand the community center to a larger space, which I think is really, really beautiful. Do you also have plans to potentially propagate your space in other areas where some of these movements are kind of sweeping the country a little bit and things are a little bit more, for example, the ganja room, right? That's okay because we're in California. So are there plans to propagate elsewhere?
Well, currently the portal itself does not have plans to franchise or charter elsewhere. However, Sacred Garden Community is in talks with some other locales about franchising that organization. I would love to see, versions of Portal in, any major city you could name. That time may come. Currently, there is no plan for the portal to satellite, but that could be down the road for us.
It's important to note that we've only been around for 2 months, right? So it's a little early on those discussions, and we're getting our feet under us right now. And there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of things that we would like to do in the future. And there's a lot of stuff that's already happening, which is super exciting because it's an indication of how much need there is for this. And also how excited the community is to have a hub for coalescing, and for, connecting and expanding and building momentum. So I think our hope would be that eventually would be able to use a model like Portal that could be expanded to other cities, whether it's something that we are necessarily involved with, or whether we can provide guidelines for other organizations that want to create their own, to create a community center like this. So there's many opportunities for expanding this work. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about it is the grounds up governance, because it really takes into account the needs of the community, and everything that is being developed is because there is a need for it. So just stay tuned, bear with us as we, through our growing pains, and come to our events. It's going to be pretty amazing. We want to expand to that other building soon, so that the more that you come and the more that you support us, then the more space we would have,
That's great. And I think that's a great segue. Sal dropped a question in the chat, and he says, what has the reception to the portal been like from the city of Berkeley?
Hey, Sal, I appreciate the question. Really, it's been nil, because we're kind of flying under the radar. We have not, we haven't been shouting from the rooftops, hey, we're the plant church over here, or anything like that, and we don't really want a ton of attention paid to us, except by y'all, right? Our focus is trying to get the word out within our intersecting communities. There will likely come a time where we have a little bit more interaction, but for now that hasn't occurred. We have a really good relationship with our landlord and our neighbors there. There is a little bit of a homeless population around the Ashby BART station. We're beginning to develop some relationships with some of those regulars, with care. But thus far, I think it's a really good question, and something that will, as I said, a bridge that we may need to cross a little bit more later. But for now, everything has been really quiet.
I gotta say the neighborhood has been lovely though. It's almost like magic. Right across the street is just a beautiful store for ritual supplies. They have Palo Santo and everything you could need, you know, and the folks that have been kind of checking us out. It's just a really good energy in the community around the Ashby BART there. A lot of nice stores. We have been going by and kind of saying hi at that level, and it feels really wonderful. Yeah. I also just wanted to mention really quickly about that kind of expansion chartering concept. This is like, I think, a strength and a weakness, but I think it should be a strength of the portal, which is that we want it to be governed by the advisory council. And there are some folks like Danielle and Mike Margolis from Psychedelic Seminars and Liana Gululi from MAPS, who we're looking for a portal, you know, that's already been happened. That's something that we've all wanted. In fact, the Decrim Nature even came out of us trying to look for a space. You know, that's how we met some of those characters that helped us make Decrim Nature happen, looking for space. That's a long way of saying Danielle, Mike, and advisory council. You know, those sort of questions are lovely ones for us to be thinking about. That's, you know, that's more probably the portal advisory to be thinking about whether or not we want to be and how we might want to be growing. So it's nice to be hearing those things coming up. Yeah.
Amazing.
really-
Thanks, Bob. Go ahead, Danielle.
I really appreciate that, Bob. And I also appreciate the question around how has Berkeley reacted to this kind of center, just especially touching upon the political climate and how Oakland, Bob and I and others worked on Decriminalize Nature Oakland, where people feel a lot safer to talk about entheogens, work with entheogens. And I don't believe that has happened yet in Berkeley. And just on that topic of policy, and Bob, you're so active with the current policy around SB 519 that's working to decriminalize psychedelics across California. Can you give us an update of what that work has been for you and where you're at in that process?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Oh, and I don't know, Danielle, if you guys have that handy, or Hannah, there's that call to action text that, you know, we might want to share. If somebody, maybe if you got that handy, we could paste it in the chat or something. I don't know how you guys get that out. It's really actually incredibly exciting. And there's both, not surprising, the sort of positive direction, the excitement, and then there are concerns. And I think they're appropriate concerns, maybe not always expressed in the most useful ways, but good concerns as well. So the great news is on the 26th of this month, we anticipate the assembly to have, or no, I'm sorry, the appropriations for the assembly to have its vote. And if this vote is a yes, which we're increasingly hopeful about, then actually it'll be the final. There is a possibility of passing the California State Decriminalization Initiative as early as September 10th. So there's a sort of an internal appropriations vote in late August. And if that goes well, then that'll go to the assembly floor, and the Senate has already voted yes. So yeah.
Just a quick correction. I believe if the amendment gets approved by the House floor, then it'll go back to the Senate for reapproval for the amended portion.
Okay, yeah, I think that's actually the 10th vote. Is that one that you just mentioned?
The Senate going back to the Senate.
The Senate would go back to the floor, whatever that meant.
Yeah, that's the House floor. That's the main floor of the House for when. So it's in appropriations now. And then it's supposed to go to, if it goes through that part, then it'll go to the House floor. And then once it gets approved by the House, then it'll go back to the Senate, because what they originally approved wasn't the amended version. So they have to go and approve the amended version. And then it goes to the governor. But
okay, thanks. And I'm still understanding that that's expected, but that all of that action is expected by early mid-September.
yeah, I'll have to check. I talked with this a friendly retired lobbyist who'd spent over 20 years and is now into mushrooms for the past couple of years, which is pretty awesome to get her scoop on stuff. But I believe you're correct. You know, I believe it'll go hopefully pretty quickly once it gets to that point. And I think there's a marijuana moment on it too that actually was pretty accurate.
Thanks. Yeah. And so I should give a little background. The Senator Wiener, who's behind the initiative, he reached out to a couple of groups, MAPS. He started out reaching out to MAPS, and then MAPS connected him to New Approach and Bronner's, which is New Approach is a political advocacy group that has a lot of funding, and the Compass Pathways put some money into New Approach, so some people can critique that. Although I have been working with the New Approach folks, and I believe that they're coming from a different place, you know, that they did receive funding from a group that has received some criticism for being sort of a capital domination, Compass Pathways. And so then basically the senator said, invite community who represents community, right? And it was a sincere effort, I believe, on the senator's part. And that was also how I got invited, because folks knew about Sacred Garden community and they knew about the decrim nature stuff. And so I got invited onto the advocacy group. And I got to tell you guys, and Sandra, I'm glad you're here, because I never pay attention to all these details about all this stuff. Mostly what I really do is when they come back and they say, in these weekly advocacy meetings we have, where there are about 15 different groups, including a number of some diverse groups, which strangely weren't attending that much. And there's a lot of discussion around who got invited and why and who's been attending. That's an area of critique, which I think is a fair one. And it's the senator was the person who was, you know, asking groups to attend. I invited Spirit Works and also a friend Ayize and a couple of others, and haven't seen a lot of attendance by those groups. But being in the advocacy group, here's really the point I think that's most important. We made it through the Senate with a bill that included ketamine, and it did not have any language about limits. And so there have been a lot of disagreements around these two areas. The Assembly basically, and this wasn't anything that the advocacy group proposed, but the Assembly came back to the advocacy group, to the senator basically, and said, we're not going to have ketamine in the bill because it's a date rape drug. And a lot of people were disappointed, and there are mixed feelings on that. There are some folks like Melody Hayes, who are also from our community, who felt that maybe that was okay. Generally, the sense from the advocacy group was we wanted to keep ketamine in there because it just never helps having something criminalized in terms of safety. But they were hard on that. The Assembly was like, if you want us just to flag and not pass the bill, you know, we won't even move it into the Assembly vote. That's fine. That was the Safety Committee, I think it was. And so we took out ketamine, and then they said, you know, we also need to have personal use limits. I got very upset. I wanted to share with this group that I was practically doing a little activated tantrum in that meeting, saying that's not going to work, you know, because there are sacrament carriers and they need to have more than 4 ounces of mushrooms. You know, I know don't have to look very far to see more than 4 ounces of mushrooms from good-hearted people who are supporting communities, right? And so there was a lot of discomfort there. And basically Ismail Ali and Tamar from New Approach, who are the real attorneys kind of in the group, who are good at that language, they said, well, we'll go and see what we can do. And the reason why I'm going into this detail is because the current decrim nature leadership got really upset by this discussion. So I'm just trying to give another perspective, and there are different perspectives on this. But I was there in the advocacy group when those conversations was happening. And I will say that there was no discussion, for example, around this is how we can corner the market and drive prices up in order to, by requiring personal limits or something. Rather it was, well, how can we move this through the Assembly and still allow folks to have as many sacraments as they might need, right, for a given purpose. And so there was a lot of discussion around, well, what about supporting groups? And I said, I think if we had something like ceremonial groups or something, that could be great. And then they went back and there were two comments. One was if we don't have any limits, what that actually means is then the police person, the law enforcement, they have to decide whether or not they think you have enough is personal use or not personal use, right? So in other words, there'll be a limit anyway. And if you have more than a certain amount, they're going to say you're a dealer and you're not following the rules of you're not supposed to be dealing mushrooms. That's not allowed. You've got 5 pounds of mushrooms. That's obviously not personal use. So we thought, okay, well, we want to set the limits advantageously. And we were going to have for specific types of groups, and some of that stayed in the language, but essentially it was trimmed all the way down to, quote, to support groups. And that's, so the real law, and this is the tough stuff in this current bill, removing ketamine and personal limits of, for example, 4 ounces of mushrooms and sort of comparable in the other things. And I don't have those memorized. Maybe someone else does. But then it's also allowed for any person to have as much material as required to support group use. If the policeman pulls you over and they say, why have you got 5 pounds of mushrooms? You say, I have that for a group that I'm supporting. If they ask you what that group is, you can actually say, the group is the people I'm giving these mushrooms to, right? So when that language came back, I felt pretty good about it, right? There's no provision for commodification or for sale or anything like that. So there's nothing about licensing costs or anything. One of the concerns the decrim nature has now, which I think is a good concern, is we don't want to do what cannabis did, which is to say anybody can grow, I don't know what it is, 6 plants or something like that. But then if you have to grow more than that, then suddenly you have like very expensive regulatory requirements, and that's pushing low income access out of participation. And so there's a lot of upset by that. And so there's a lot of upset around any language that talks about limits. You see what I mean? I think that's something important that we want to look at when we get to, if we move into a regulatory framework. We want to make sure that that participation at commercial scales is not so expensive that low income folks can't participate. So I do think that's something that's still real important. That was probably a lot of words there on SB 519, but I was trying to get into the sort of really tough stuff because there's been a lot of big fighting on the internet around the limits language in particular. So I thought it might be useful to go into that. Yeah. Any questions on that?
We have a question from Phil. Phil, did you want to say your question that you put in the chat?
I can, actually Clive offered to respond to me separately in email, but just to open up the question to Bob and Isabel and anyone who worked on this, just kind of a question about what you have sacrificed to help bring this project into fruition, and how have you made room in your lives for the work that you're putting into this, which I'm sure is very considerable, and thank you for that.
And by that you mean the portal, right, Phil?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say this, may I? I'm going to turn 60 next week. I've spent the last 30 years of my life teaching kids how to act, directing Shakespeare plays for youth, acting and directing in Bay Area theater. And that was my way to give back, right? That was my way to make a difference. And a few years ago, that stopped feeling so fulfilling to me. It stopped feeling so meaningful to me. And I started getting involved with the Sacred Garden community. And then through conversations with Bob and with David at Bronner So, the opportunity presented itself to move over here and run this center. And it felt serendipitous to me My disillusion and my growing burnout with where I was, my growing love and hope and expectation for what lies ahead in the work that organizations like ours are doing, like the work that individuals like us are doing, felt something I could not say no to. My own journey with the medicines has been incredibly powerful and healing for me. My mother's emerging journey with the medicines and the healing that's presenting to her is deeply, deeply meaningful to me. I want to be in service of that. For me, for you, for my mom, for everybody. I really like to dedicate what little might be left of my life in service to that. And so, you know, little less money, little less security in those kind of realms, and a hell of a lot more hope, Phil. That's where I'm living right now, and that's what's bringing me into this work and into this space and into what I think is going to be a really beautiful and bright future for all of us. Thanks. I really appreciate that question. Thank you so much.
Isabel, you want to say anything?
Sure, I'm happy to share. I also don't see it necessarily as a sacrifice. Very much like Clive, I have had growing discontent with the traditional path that I followed for many years. I was a project manager for 20 years and have worked in technology companies and done a lot of work in that world. And a few years ago, I transitioned to working in nonprofits, thinking that that was going to be the thing that was going to give me the satisfaction that I did. All this while, for the last 25 years, I've been following a parallel path, developing my own skill set for navigating expanded states of consciousness. And through a number of different serendipitous experiences, that became the thing that I did that was really giving meaning to my life. Whereas the work that I was doing was paying my rent and was a paycheck, you know, and it became less and less satisfying. Whereas the other work that I was doing as a vocation for free, and accidentally these people would come into my path without me seeking it out. It just that was giving me purpose, you know, and that was what's really exciting me about my contribution to society. Long story short, 3 years ago, I got laid off from my job, completely unexpected. And I started a PhD program 3 weeks later that I had been dreaming about forever. And I got my graduate degree, my master's degree at CIIS, and I had wanted to get my PhD eventually. And I always thought it was going to be when I retired, you know, something that I would do for myself, some sort of indulgence, where I felt that I could take the time away from work because it's a intensive training. And instead, when I got laid off, it was the answer to all the prayers that I have and all the intentions I had been putting out in the universe. And it was a direct answer to a journey where I asked for guidance the night before I got laid off. So it was this really beautiful thing. And since then, I have oriented my entire work to growing my ability to hold space for others in these in various situations, to facilitate this type of work and to facilitate integration. And at the same time, the opportunity to get involved with Sacred Garden came about, and it just so happened that there was a good fit between what I could offer, in particular my years of experience in project management and consulting and strategy development and training to support the mission of Sacred Garden, and then to also support what arose in terms of Portal. So it has been, I don't see it as as something I've given up, as so much I have gained from the experience, is the ability to walk my talk, right? It's not just about wanting to orient myself or talking about doing this type of work, is actually doing it, boots on the ground every day, and being involved in it. And yes, like Clive said, it's less money, a lot less security, and a lot more hustle. And there's a lot of things that are different from receiving a paycheck from an organization with benefits and, perks and all these other things that I was accustomed to. And I would not change it for the world. So it's a commitment that I have made to this mission, and I am deeply thankful to have the opportunity to contribute what I have to the furthering of this endeavor.
Amen.
Thank you.
I guess I might say something maybe that I kind of hope we can feel, because I know there are a lot of folks in this membership and in this presence who are also serving in different ways, either seeking your own healing or serving. And so, I just want to call out the sacred materials, sacraments, I call them. And the reason why I'm not only saying sacred plants is because just recognizing the profound mystical experience I had at age 17 with LSD. It was so overwhelming. It was one of those, beyond words. You could say God, you could say eternity, however you want to frame that, sitting on the side of a mountain in Tennessee. I just felt so much gratitude and awe and to honestly puzzlement. That led me into a lifetime of sort of seeking community in the space and I guess you might say urge to integration and community integration, right? So these profound sacraments can really, I think we want to be discerning and we want to be careful. The first thing I did was I went and spoke to my parents about my experience, and I was really lucky that I felt safe to do that, and had seen books by John Lilly and Charles Tart and some folks like that in my dad's library, my parents' library. So I felt I could talk to them, and they said, well, go to the library. Started me out with integration, right? And then recognizing privileges. Honestly, folks, a lot of us, even who can be here on this Zoom, we've really experienced a lot of privilege in our life, right? That we can even be here. And, if we've been fortunate enough to have someone who's loved us, a loving mentor in our life, we are also experiencing privileges from unjust history, right? I mean, and even current injustice, like that's happening, and that's just the way that it is. There's unnecessary suffering, but then there also are all the gifts that we've received and that we're receiving, and particularly the profound gifts that working with plant sacraments in community can bring. I mean, it's just so you can feel that so much. So just like Isabel and Clive, it's not, I think, not a sacrifice, rather seeing this opportunity to take a heck of a lot of time, not get paid, but it's a gift. It's just a gift. What else are we doing with our lives? I mean, I could sit around and watch TV or go spend money and drink or something, but I can't really imagine a place that is better to be than like right here with this community, and so it's not a sacrifice, it's a gift, and really grateful to be able to share this time with you guys. Yeah.
We're so grateful too, Bob, and I'm just really feeling a lot of love in our Zoom room right now, radiate, and seeing a lot of nodding heads and gratitude. I'm curious, let's say SB 519 passes In what way do you see this impacting California and rippling out in the fractal into the Portal community space?
Well, I do hope that we can actually have love and grow love between groups that this is big stuff. Some are maybe a little easier and some are a little tougher, like medical community, clinical community, and traditional practicing communities. There's Sage Health, right? It's more of a clinical model. Can we love Sage Health even though we may I've learned a lot of what I practice in Sierra Mazateca, right? And I'm not gonna sit and be quiet if someone's gonna say those practices that we've learned aren't careful and respectful and safe, because I know they are. But can we grow love between these groups and even trust, which is, I know these are aspirational comments here, and they require change from at least one of a relationship, if not from both, right? And really, we're from everyone. So can we grow love and have love between, for example, clinical, medical, and traditional ground level, sacred and creative kinds of practices? That's one. Clive was really mentioning, can we, and this is a lot to ask, can we start to find a space where we can also grow trust and love against really fractured communities like BIPOC folks and, cis white men? Shoot. I thought this wasn't going to happen today. But, can we grow love and trust across these fractured communities, right? And you can find folks within communities who can move into that place of trust, but the communities are not feeling love and trust. Generally, there's fear, there's anger, there's resentment. There's disconnection, there's hoarding, from fear. Can we grow across those things in the portal? I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about in Oakland, in my house. Can we do that? And boy, talk about big things. There's capital, which has been abusing all of us, I will propose, for hundreds of years now. And that's a real tough one. Is it possible that these, C-level venture funds, and these kind of groups can we also, and I've got to tell you, I'm sitting on a few boards, myself. Can we find our common humanity and move from a place of love with our actions? Can we reconnect struggling, impoverished 95% of the United States with the rest of those? So that's a lot of the vision that I'm hoping for from Portal. Yeah. I don't know what the question was. I forgot.
I think the question was, is Bob going to get emotional tonight? And the answer is yes, my brother. I love you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you for your passion. I really feel that coming from you, and same with Clive and Isabel. And the question was around the impact of this statewide decriminalization initiative and what you see it having on California and potentially on Portal. And I'm curious, Clive or Isabel, if you want to chime into that.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I don't think that, if SB 519 passes next month, I don't think that the portal is immediately going to open up to, 200 people coming and having a 5-MeO DMT experience together. The state may do one thing and the federal government will do another. We'll continue to operate in a careful and respectful and safe manner in everything that we do. And I know from my conversations with the organizations and representatives on the advisory council that their pledge is sacrosanct in that regard as well. We don't engage in our practices to cause trouble. Well, maybe sometimes a little bit, but mostly we engage in our practices with these medicines towards, careful, respectful engagement with ourselves, our spirits, what lies beyond, and with each other. And I think that we'll continue to do that. That being said, if it does pass, it will give us similar kind of leeway to what the city of Oakland has experienced with that decriminalization passage. And sorry, I can't remember exactly when that happened. June of 2018 was about. In that, we can expect that law enforcement will pay a little bit less attention to us and our activities. And therefore, we can operate in a slightly more open and more relaxed manner. But we're not going to have Woodstock 99, the following day or anything crazy like that. I hope that answers it.
One thing I can add is I do hope that if decriminalization passes, that it helps people who are currently observing from the sidelines, are getting a lot of information from questionable sources, to have the opportunity to come out of the shadows, if you will, and openly seek education and counseling and support for safe, responsible, and ethical use of these substances, and that we can provide both the space and the resources to further that mission, because I think that the need for these substances far outstrips the available resources right now. That is something that I'm encountering in my integration practice, how to scale up to provide more knowledge and information to people in a way that is truly nourishing. That is not just information, but how do we take into account the whole individual in delivering that? So I do hope that we're going to be able to do more programming around education and have a wider audience that is engaged in providing services for people to do this work well and safely and equitably.
Bob, thank you for your note in the chat there. Being that Portal is administered by Sacred Garden Community, we're all about the plants, y'all. Our Sunday satsang always includes a plant talk, and we are working on a growing stock of seedlings and cuttings of sacred entheogenic plants there at the Portal, that if you come to a Sunday satsang, you'll go home with a beautiful plant that you can have in your home. I can say that part of my relationship with the medicine is having a relationship with the plant itself. The wachuma that grows in my front yard nourishes me every day, and I do not consume the wachuma every day. But that kind of a relationship, the growing, the cultivation, the sustaining of these plants can be so nourishing to us, and such a beautiful adjunct to our practice with the actual medicine. I would encourage everybody to grow some plants. Go ahead, Bob. You're muted, brother.
There's a saying goodbye. Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, everyone. See you
Thank you,
later.
Hannah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you all. I really appreciate, Isabel, what you said about the emphasis on education. And I think that's so important as we roll out decriminalization, that people understand how to use these safely and have a the community to support them as they're utilizing these substances, and understand the importance of integration and preparation and navigation, set and setting, just all the different facets of psychedelic experiences, and how we're really changing the current paradigm away from the stigmatization of these substances. And we do that through education. And I too would love to see Portal being a portal for that information, and how important that is for people to have access to that. And that's definitely what we're all about. So thank you so much for speaking to that. And that's one thing that I just really connected me with Sacred Garden community for so many years, is the plants and the emphasis on plants, and going to all the meetings and getting to meet so many people that are plant people. And it's such a rare thing to find that these days in our ordinary lives, and just to be able to connect with all these multidimensional humans in such a sacred way. So really grateful that you all are providing that space. Are there any questions from our membership community before we start to come to a close? Isabel?
Can I make a request? I'm putting together a course for beginners, and I would like to do some market research to find out what people want to see in a course that would address the needs of a beginner. And if you're an experienced practitioner, if you could share with me, what is it that you would tell a beginner of what's important from starting to work with psychedelics? I have a survey. Can I put it on the chat and have you guys fill it out and send it out to others if you feel appropriate?
Sure.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. And it's anonymous until the end if you choose to give your information, but I'm not asking for emails unless you want to share that.
I just want to share, I'm really excited about Portal and what it will provide for the community, and how you're really building on all these amazing, unique organizations to come together and to really support each other, and to really, build that heart space of sharing, connecting and healing and compassion that, I know we all have a heart space for, and I know that's part of my heart space. So as an ethicist in particular, it sets me all aglow. So happy to help in any way I can. And I'm just so excited and that we have this in the Bay Area where I live, in my home, even though I'm in the South Bay in Santa Cruz, I feel always a little bit detached, but I'm cheering from afar, and will come whenever I can. So let me know.
Get up here and give me a hug, Doc.
I know.
Can't wait to meet you in person.
I know. I want to meet all of you all. I'm like, I wish I could come this weekend. I have my kids this weekend, but have those vegan tacos with you. That sounds awesome. I miss you all so much, even though I've never met you in person. I'll give you hugs for now and kisses.
Thank you, Dr. Sandra, for your love.
Always
Speaking of plants, I want to say I really love those mushrooms back behind you. They're really beautiful, Danielle. Yeah.
Is it Amanita?
It is in theme of our Amanita month.
We don't know anything about that, do we, Danielle?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of deep dives in education and community and integration around Amanita muscaria mushroom. And we're still in the middle of our transforming our lives with Amanita muscaria microdosing cohort. And Dr. Sandra's a part of that. It's been amazing to be able to learn about this legal entheogen that has so much false information about it being toxic, and it kind of gets ignored in the psychedelic space around all the benefits it has for anxiety and personal discovery and so many different parts of our self-development, that it can really be a catalyst to helping us understand. So grateful that we're able to learn about it. And Bob has always talked so highly about Amanita and been just quite the advocate about it. Bob, do you want to say a bit about your love for Amanita?
Well, mostly I'm just feeling happy that we're getting a proper couple minutes on the straight love of what I consider to be the sacrament. So I'm into just a little time for the love. And those are beautiful pictures back here. Here's a beautiful, this is called Var Flavi Volvata. Yeah. And if you guys can ever find one of these growing in nature, if you can pick them and it's not really hurting to pick them. They have a lot of mycelia underground. If there's one that's kind of older and sort of beat up and you don't really want to pick it, even if you like kick it or spread it around, they like that. And even just taking it is not considered to be unethical. So if you see a beautiful amanita and it's maybe if it's not where other people will also enjoy it and you want to pick it, then I recommend dry it very quickly. It won't sometimes won't even make it overnight. So, you do want to dry it that day, and just having even just the little mushroom around, it's just an amazing, beautiful smell. I think for me, the smell itself is like calming and grounding. And then we could go into talking about the mushroom for hours, but you can just have a little chew, like a little thumbnail, and let that dissolve in your mouth, and that can be calming. It's a lovely plant. And if you take time and go further, it can really move you into an experience that someone here in this place that I've sat with during that would call something like eternal life, or being within the Ouroboros, so it can really open up. There are multiple layers of experience, sort of physical comfort and sleep, lightening of spirit, and then even opening into a real experience of what someone has called eternal, experience of eternal life, death, and rebirth. So it's a beautiful mushroom. I just couldn't resist because I saw them back there, and I thought, well, we'll at least look at a plant for a minute. Yeah. Thank you.
I love it. I mean, this is exactly what the community is about, right? Connecting and sharing and seeing all those connections and growing and learning from each other. So this is exactly it. So thank you.
Amen. Sal?
Hi, I just, seems like everyone has talked, so I thought I should just say something. Sorry, my hair is not not acting correct. Anyway, I just feel really honored to hear about the opening of this center, and I'm currently in a 4-year herbalist training program and have some self-healing to do as well. And then just literally in the last 2 weeks, like the call of the plant just became really strong. And I just started all this footwork. And you know what, 2 days ago or something, found this meeting, and to hear about portal starting, hear about the mission. I wasn't up to date on the Senate bill. I remember Scott, and he was just a little young lawyer in the neighborhood. He's doing big things now. Anyway, I'm excited to come to the center and be with the plants. I've never been with the plants. Well, at least since I was 18, but and participate in the community and help build the mission. So I just mostly listening, but I thought it would be good to say hello. So, you know a little about me and how I've come to arrive here tonight. I think I've mostly just been quiet because I've just been sitting here in awe, just stunned by what I've stumbled into, in my backyard. Just live in North Berkeley. So, and just, wow, the work and experience of this group is just mind blowing, and commitment. It's just an honor to sit and watch you work, and hopefully provide, some service to the community and with that I have. But anyway, thank you for letting me talk.
And thank you, Sal, for joining our healing community. It's really an honor to have you join us and take that step in your healing path. And I love that the first chance to answering that call, you joined us in our membership community. It's a huge way of being of service to us, and may that ripple out to the greater community. And we hope that all of you come to the Portal Community Center so we can meet you and be in community with you. And I know many of you are part of our global community in other places around the world, but this is just a way that we could kind of tap into each other through this mycelial web on the internet.
I feel like I need a closing meditation or like an intention or something like that.
Would you like to offer that, Dr. Sandra?
I know. I saw. It's funny because I saw to me, Bob was pointing off into space. Like let's let the universe decide. Sure, go ahead. I guess it is my fault I brought it up. I was feeling led, I guess. Let's just take a deep moment and to center, close our eyes and reflect. Get comfortable in your seat. Feel your feet on the ground. Taking a deep breath in. Feeling go down, filling your belly, relaxing into this space, into this moment, and with this community, this moment, this time, and breathing out, allowing the breath to flow, yet observed. Contemplate how you hope and dream and envision portal to open new doors for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for the world. In this moment, you have created that possibility together with all of us. And may it be so. Sending you love, hope, joy, and more doors opening than will ever shut behind you.
May it be so. May it be so. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you to Bob. Thank you to Isabel, Clive, for being here today, for your service to community, for opening your hearts to us, for opening your doors, your portal to us. And thank you to our membership community for your dedication to our organization, to helping serve the psychedelic community at large, and for truly being the backbone of our organization and continuing to support this important work. And thank you to the plants and the fungi and all the psychedelics for all that they bring to our lives and for bringing us together today. I'm just so grateful to be on this path with you all, and looking forward to deepening and growing and transforming in community with you. Have a beautiful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
So much love.
Thank you.
It's only the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Salud.
That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
friends.